Hello and welcome to the Climate Economy from the Hindu. I'm your host Kunal Shankar. In our last episode, we examined how India could save 60 gigawatts of electricity by 2035 and significantly reduce carbon emissions if the energy efficiency of its room air conditioners could level with global standards. But as the summer gets into its most intense phase, let's look at other aspects of cooling, such as building architecture and design. There exists a phenomenon known as the urban heat island effect. Many of you might already know about this, where built-up urban areas experience significantly higher temperatures than others. Dense clusters of concrete, asphalt, and dark surfaces absorb and retain heat during the day and release it slowly at night, keeping the cities warmer throughout the day. Urban heat island effect causes urban temperatures to be almost 4 degrees Celsius higher than non-urban areas. The increased energy demand for air conditioning further deepens the environmental strain and creates a vicious cycle of heat and emissions. To break this cycle, it is not enough to rely on more efficient air conditioners. We must reduce the demand for cooling altogether. This is where passive cooling emerges as a prominent solution. Many of you might be aware of passive cooling, but let's try and catch up with the latest on building cooling trends that employ low carbon methods. Passive cooling involves techniques that use natural heat flows and our knowledge of its rules to cool indoor spaces. These techniques reduce internal temperatures and improve comfort without relying on electricity or mechanical systems, thus reducing the burden on the planet and on the wallet, both carbon emissions and electricity bills. One of the most established strategies under passive cooling is solar control, the process of minimizing the heat absorbed by a building from direct sunlight. This includes designing shades to face away from harsh solar angles, using overhangs, brise soleils, deep verandas to shade walls and windows, and incorporating reflective material on rooftops and external walls to bounce sunlight away. These features, especially common in tropical regions, are now seeing renewed interest for their simplicity and effectiveness. An advanced form of solar control is the double skin facade, which consists of an outer transparent layer, usually glass, separated from the main insulated wall by an air cavity. Sunlight enters and heats the space between the layers, but rather than transferring the heat to the building, the warm air rises and escapes through top vents, carrying excess heat away before it reaches the interior. This natural convection mechanism significantly reduces cooling loads in buildings. For areas with high humidity, desiccant cooling is essential. This method uses moisture-absorbing materials such as silica gel or zeolites to dehumidify the air, making it feel cooler even if the temperatures remain unchanged. These materials can be regenerated using low-grade solar heat, making the system self-sustaining and efficient. Heat dissipation is another crucial principle, often supported by smart ventilation design and material science. Through cross-ventilation and stack effect architecture, where ventilation is propelled with differing temperature in different levels, buildings can encourage air movement that naturally removes heat. Heat dissipation techniques include evaporative, convective, and radiative cooling. Evaporative cooling uses water to absorb heat as it evaporates, working best in dry climates. Essentially, it pulls out the heat in the atmosphere while replacing it with moisture. It is a natural antonym of desiccant cooling in a way. Now let's look at convective cooling. Convective cooling relies on air movement to carry heat away, which can be done with windows aided by the natural movement of winds. Tools like solar chimneys or wind-driven systems help move air effectively. This method is often utilized by architects and engineers by strategically placing openings suitable for the wind, to move in that area. Radiative cooling is a method that relies on the principle that almost all physical objects emit electromagnetic radiation, some more than others. By emitting this radiation, objects effectively transfer heat from their body to the atmosphere. A good example is the Earth itself, since it has radiation that partly keeps the heat away from the sun's rays. A well-assembled radiative cooling system can transfer excess heat to outer space through thermal radiation based on the large temperature difference between space and Earth. Some recent innovations go a step further with passive daytime radiative cooling, known as PDRC. This technique uses specialized surfaces that reflect sunlight while simultaneously radiating heat into the cold upper atmosphere. In field applications, PDRC has demonstrated surface temperature reduction of up to 10 degrees Celsius without use of electricity, making it a particularly promising tool for urban rooftops and pavements. Another common technique to passive cooling is heat modulation. Heat modulation controls how heat enters or is stored in a building. An aspect of convective cooling is applied in this method, which uses windows or openings to bring in cooler outside air, especially at night. An alternative approach to heat modulation is the use of materials with high thermal mass, which is the capacity of a material to absorb heat and release it later at night. Stone, rammed earth, or compressed stabilized earth blocks can absorb excess heat during the day and release it at night, stabilizing indoor temperatures. Construction materials are another aspect of building sustainable cool structures and are central to the effectiveness of passive cooling. Currently, the dominant material in global construction, which is concrete, is not only poor in thermal performance but also highly carbon intensive. Cement, a key component of concrete, accounts for about 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions. Alternatives such as bamboo, recycled timber, earth-based materials, and geopolymer concrete are not only more sustainable but also more thermally efficient. Their natural breathability and thermal inertia help create stable indoor climates with less need for artificial intervention. As the world warms and as heat waves grow more intense and frequent, especially in rapidly urbanizing countries like India, ensuring thermal comfort through low carbon methods is no longer just an option, it is an imperative. Passive cooling can help us design buildings that do not demand electricity to remain habitable, but instead manage heat intelligently and sustainably. Here are a few examples where successful usage of passive cooling techniques have resulted in climatically adapted functioning of a structure. The first, designed by Mick Pierce in collaboration with Arup engineers, the EastGate Centre in Zimbabwe takes inspiration from termite mounds, using a series of chimneys and internal vents to passively regulate temperature. It uses 90% less energy for ventilation than similarly sized buildings, drastically reducing operational emissions. Another one, a Delhi-based art studio designed a unique cooling solution called the CoolAnt Beehive. It uses a combination of evaporative cooling and ventilation techniques to reduce surrounding temperatures. Recycled water at room temperature runs on multiple terracotta cylinders stacked on each other, the visual of which imitates a beehive. The air passing through the cones is cooled gradually. The CoolAnt Beehive was found to reduce temperatures by 6 degrees Celsius on a hot day. The airflow around the installation site also reduced from 10 meters per second to 4 meters per second, aiding in thermal comfort. And finally, a residential tower system designed by Boeri studio Bosco Verticale incorporated thousands of plants across its facade, reducing solar heat gain and filtering pollutants. The greenery provides shade, improves insulation, and significantly reduces the building's microclimate temperature. These experiments and their success converge to a broader architectural logic, one that views buildings as instruments of climate adaptation. Passive cooling techniques do not require or deplete an extravagant amount of resources. Rather, they require thoughtful planning, knowledge of the material, and a willingness to submit to the rules of nature rather than oppose it. And that's all we have on this episode of The Climate Economy. If you like this video and would like to hear more about how climate change is reshaping our economies, do hit the bell icon on The Hindu's YouTube channel. You can also write to us, or better still, send us a video recording of your question to climateeconomy@thehindu.co.in, and we'll do our best to feature you and get your questions answered. Bye for now.